Welcome to the Market Internal Review for Friday, October 13th, 2023. Yesterday we had a decent sell after peaking over previous day high, which would have been from Wednesday. Just kind of checking that out before we probably stop out one side of the equation here on market participants and sell off about $6 here from the high all the way to the low. Starting to see a lot of sustained bearish tick here. Very, very good drop if you're on short side here. A bit quick to grab if you're somebody that goes off of the first standard deviation kind of entry here off of TWAP. You could also position based off of the break retest of the previous range first standard deviation, which would have been from Wednesday here. We do have a good entry here, even though we've got such a long drop already. I think the odds are pretty good at that point that we're going to continue to see some more downside given what we're seeing here on tick. We've got back-to-back extreme closures with no end in sight. Price and volume for the New York Stock Exchange really, really bright, showing sustained sell here, even down to this right here. So I have released an indicator called TWAP ranges. I made a video about it. If you've not watched it yet, all it does is print the target levels from the TWAP indicator, but it does it on its own. It's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more customizable, and that's what these ranges are. I also just released an update today that allows you to have a backfill for certain zones. I personally love to see that first standard deviation range from the previous day filled in. That's the range I like to use to set up my trade plans intraday. Heading into today, Friday, so we start off with a gap up of about $1.50 here, and we've got Mercy. We also have a lot of strong indication here of strong buying. We've got price and volume showing a bullish trend. However, we're not above previous day's high. We're not outside of the previous first standard deviation range here from Thursday. So a lot of things that make this highly suspect that we're actually going to see a buy. We do peak right over the range just for a brief moment, but we have a failed breakout. So when you see a candle pattern set up like this, where you've got a strong candle break, you've got kind of an indecision candle with tall wicks, then you've got this one here, that is a no-go. No-go, we lose TWAP on the current session. We lose first standard deviation, though these bands don't have a lot of data yet at that point. More importantly, we lose the breakout here of this range. So for myself, I took the early short entry. There's a little bit of hesitation on how far we will go because we have the daily gap here. We've got previous TWAP price, and we also have basically the midpoint of the range here, all converging. We also have mid of previous day's range right here. So you see all of this bouncing. We did try to break into the first standard deviation on the low side. However, by that point, we're starting to see a bearish price and a bearish volume trend on the New York Stock Exchange. We're also seeing that Mercy is confirming that as well. We're seeing a very consistent downtrend up to that point. We're still on the upside, and I think that is also substantiated by the fact that we're still seeing decent bullish ticks. However, you notice that every one of these bull ticks that we've got is making a lower high. So we have more sustained selling right through previous TWAP, right through the daily gap, massive engulfed downside, breaking that gap low, and then we completely lose the first standard deviation range here, break that down, and that's kind of where things fall apart. We start to see some really weird bull tick action here. It's below 500, it's real weak, and we are seeing some decent bear side tick. However, it is making lower lows, but I would say that for this heavy a tick, I would have expected something a little stronger. So we start to see trend here showing no signs of balance or imbalance, just very weak, no sustain to any of these moves. It's a lot of back and forth, and I mean, it's more of a, if you were short from the highs, you're doing good down here. Save for maybe this move. This is a decent move. That's got to be at least about $1 and something. Oh, $2. So that's a pretty hard pullback to take if you were short from up here. Because at that point, from somewhere up here, you're $5 in. You just gave a third back, so that's a little rough to take. We did move lower from here. We made about a $3.50 move. So I think from the high today, did we break? Yeah, so almost $6.50 from the high to the low. So pretty good sell there, and good rejection here of TWAP. That could have been a good entry. It's also right here at the range low that I like to use. But man, I mean, from about 130 on, we have nothing. And we got all this sustained bear tick sell all the way down here. There's a reason we stop here, and I'll show you that here in a moment. But basically just hung out right here at previous day low. Not much else to say. Volatility is back up. We're back up to almost 20 again. And then the ad, you can see we landed at negative 700. Not a huge sell for the day compared to some of the other days where we've had some immense selling. Even volume, not really seeing a big sell here on the Vold. Tick is accumulating to the low side. Ad, we've pretty much flatlined after that 130 right here around SMA, 200 SMA. So I'm not sure. We might see a little bit of upside next week on Monday. But yeah, it's a little difficult to say. You look at New York Composite, we were actually flat on the composite well before 130 on SPY. We probably hit the end of our move here by about 11 o'clock, and then we did make one final attempt at a low, but notice we never even touched previous day low on the composite. So somewhat of a mixed signal. SPY did head back into first standard deviation on the monthly TWAP, and it's still on the higher end. We did not come close to monthly TWAP just yet. That's currently resting at 427, almost 428 on the dot. The Qs definitely has given some up. It's almost in the exact same predicament as SPY, heading back into that upper region, that first standard deviation on the month. This is September's TWAP price, so we did bounce on that, and we're at 362.5 pretty much for monthly TWAP. And we were just at third deviation zone, almost at the highs, just on the 10th, October 10th. We made one final push on Qs, made a little bit of a higher high after stretching these bands out, and that's it. So that bounce was right here on first standard deviation high on the Qs, rejecting TWAP multiple times on the session. Dow was pretty interesting this morning. It looked like it was trying to make a break back into the third deviation zone on monthly TWAP, but it rejected, lost previous day high, and basically chopped within its daily gap pretty much the rest of the session. It was basically toast by 11 o'clock. The Russell, on the other hand, the weakest of the bunch. I continue to say how I'm watching the Russ all the time because, in my opinion, it's the one that's giving the signals. However, the last couple of days this week, it has been a little noisier. But look at how well SPY and the Russ match today. They're almost carbon copies. I mean, every little bounce here and this nastiness at the end of the day. I mean, if you hide the prices and hide the symbol, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to tell which was which. Russell also is below. It's in the bottom second deviation zone for the monthly TWAP. And yesterday it was when it lost that monthly. We had a couple bounces. And I believe this was the day I was on X saying Russ needs to break monthly TWAP or session TWAP up and hold monthly TWAP. Or if it breaks that, all hell's going to break loose. And I was trying to scalp long off of this. Sadly, Thursday that did not work out. We had tons of green tick on the session TWAP here, but they rejected it, broke the monthly TWAP, and boom, all the way down. And we did bounce right at the first standard deviation low for the month, for the monthly TWAP. But Yeah, there was just an immense sell once that finally broke. It was pretty nuts because you can see, I mean, we did sell off hard right here in the morning, but then from basically from 9:45 all the way till almost 1 o'clock, we did nothing until that broke. Then the rest of the market took off to the downside. So it's going to be interesting. I've got a couple theories of, perhaps we are seeing the Russ sell off. The Dow is starting to be drugged down somewhat, but I would say for the most part, it's basically just range bound and flat. If the Russ can find a bottom and start to come back up, maybe SPY and Q will still be at a relatively bullish position where we can start to rise again. That being said, so the last video that I had shared this chart on, I mentioned we've got a couple candles here on the daily that I didn't feel we had tested yet. So October 10th, Tuesday, we tested the 50% of this gap that we've got here. We also have another test on October 12th, so that was yesterday, 50%, just a couple cents higher than that. But then I said, this candle down here, I'm still not convinced that we were going to see. Well, I wasn't convinced we were going to see this much, but every one of these candles is smaller. Starting to see these long wicks. There's a lot of indecision here. So finally, I had said, watch 50% of this and 50% of this. This one could stop us for this week until we hit, perhaps sell off more and hit this one. So today we hit this basically to the cent. I think the low price was 429.88, and that's 429.97. So not quite to the tick, to the cent, but pretty darn close. It's also really close to where the 10 SMA is on the daily chart. We did close over the 20. So we could see a little bit of a relief bounce on Monday before we come back down into here. I don't remember what video it was now, but I had drawn some rather awful SMA lines, what I thought they might look like. I think I said it looked like a snake tongue, but that's kind of effectively what I've been, convinced that we'll see is something more like this down here, which would be awful to trade in unless you like iron condors. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's just going to get real muddy and real messy until things sort themselves out. But obviously, anything can happen. Looking at the RSI, pull that back up here. So RSI, I'm going to hide this other chart. The RSI was, starting to cook up here over the last week. We started to drag all these up. The average was just right here around the 50%, but we weren't seeing a lot of big volume, save for like this day and this day, I think. These days, the volume wasn't that hot. Today was. So we had a 95 million volume day. That is above average. And we're seeing a lot of that in finance. And that was the one that stood out to me. It looks like energy saw a decent amount of volume, but that was about it. It's mainly finance, and so it's kind of weird. Yeah, so we're starting to see a downtrend a little bit here. And then I also mentioned the growth stocks, being that last handful of times the growth stocks have been about 50% of them above their 20-day average, has been a sell signal. Looks like we might be having that work out again. And go look here. We'll pull up some of the other ones. S&P 500 over 50-day average. So we did have a good bounce, or a good breakout rather, to 31%, but now we're back down to 25. Looking at the 100-day, we didn't even get to that mid-range. So this almost just looks like a sustained downtrend. Just 30% of stocks in the S&P 500 over their 100-day, 20-day. So S&P 100, oh, I need to, okay, now here it is. S&P 100, top 100 stocks above their 20-day. So that actually, if this is accurate, I've noticed this data seems to be delayed sometimes, but if this is accurate, it almost still looks like it's up, an uptrend. So that could be encouraging. Looking at the 5-day top 100 stocks above their 5-day. Oh wow, look at that. We had a top here. I wish I would have seen this before. So okay, we had a top here. Ooh, that was a good signal. Look at that. And then we had a top here. That also was a pretty darn good signal. That's the day that we hit the 50% of that daily gap there. Wow. Okay. Well, if I can remember, I've got like a billion things to look at, but if I can remember, I will try to recall to pull this up more frequently. Probably would help if I set some alerts on this, and that's a good call out too. If anybody is fascinated or finds these useful, these tickers S1, FD, you can screenshot this and just go type this in. These words you can just type these in the symbol search, and they will come up for you. But I would definitely encourage looking at these yourself and setting alerts. So you can set alerts to say, hey, when there's a 25% break, when there's a 75% break, be alerted to it on TradingView or any other brokerage that has these symbols. And that way you don't even have to be conscious of going and reviewing them on the regular. The software will just tell you. I am actually half tempted to make another indicator that provides like a little table readout for all of these so that you just have them at a glance if you want. So maybe I'll do that. But heading into next week, I am expecting I could see a little bit of an upside bounce. I highly doubt we would make it back above this area here. So it's getting kind of messy here on this chart, but I'm going to consider a range kind of between these two candles here, combine them. So 433.5, that's pretty much what I would consider to be like our make or break. If we can stay above that, then sure, maybe we'll head higher. We've got the 100 SMA still. We still got the rest of this gap. If we don't stay above that, then I'm going to expect that we're going to break through 430 effectively and maybe start checking out 426. So that's kind of my final thoughts here, as we've already reviewed monthly TWAP and we're kind of mixed bag. We've got SPY and Q still potentially hanging on, Dow basically flat, and Russ tanking. And I don't know, let me see here. I don't know if we've got any big economic news next week. Let's see here. We'll just focus on the highest price. Oh, okay. Of course. Oh, okay, no, that's not the U.S. So retail sales, building permits. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, we have Jay Powell's speech on the 19th. So could get wild here, and we also have GDP growth rates, durable goods orders. Yeah, this is going to be a wild rest of October. And I'm also pretty sure we have a lot more earnings upcoming. I don't see any tech earnings here yet, but I was quite sure that we did. But I guess keep your eye out for the economic news. And yeah, Jay Powell. Okay, Jay Powell, October 19th. I'll try to remember that. Anyways, I'm going to be watching Russ. Just going to keep watching Russ. Where's it going? It's going to it drags things around. I swear it does. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you had a fantastic trading week, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. As always, happy trading.